What y'all doing? Today we're going to do a tutorial on how to spot fake Louis Vuittons. Now, um, this is super exciting. So this is where I geeked out. So we have a little collection here. Um, the important thing to remember, which some of you probably already know, is that Louis Vuitton began his business in 1854 by making trunks. Okay, back then trunks were luggage. His claim to fame was that these trunks, instead of being the kind of rounded top pirate's chest looking trunks that we're all familiar with, they were called steamers because they were put on steamboats and ships and traveled to other countries. He turned that top into a flat top, which made it stackable. And that was his claim to fame. They were hand stitched leather, they had solid brass, tacked grommets, they were truly pieces of work. So that's where Louis Vuitton came from. That having been said, that structural integrity, which is what you need in luggage, obviously you don't want it all falling out when you're rolling across the parking lot or the airport. That's what he kept. So in 1854, no, I'm sorry, in 1897, his son George took over the company. And this is really important. When George did, he realized that people in 1897 were trying to copy his father's work. So what he did was he created this LV, which obviously is the initials of their last name. So now we're talking about George uh, Vuitton, and then the flower pattern. So his idea in creating this unique pattern and then stamping it on canvas and on leather was to prevent fraud. The irony is, it is the very thing today that people are doing and reproducing, and it is fraud. So we're going to tell you how to spot it. So remember, I told you structural integrity is important. So that means Louis Vuitton himself, and then again George, they would take a solid piece of leather to make a bag like this. Okay, and what that does is that ensures the structural integrity. So when you take one side of the bag, you will see the monogram in the right direction. And because it, again, is one solid piece of leather, it wraps around the tote. And what do you see here? The LV is upside down. A lot of people foolishly think that that means it's a fake. In reality, that is the true sign that it is real. And it's expensive to do. Even if you're knocking it off, you're taking one large piece of leather to make the piece. So that's that. Here is an older piece where we see the same thing. So this was an attaché. I would say this is more late 70s, early 80s. And there we go. Same thing. So upright, upside down. Okay. Uh, and then of course this I have to say belongs to me. My wife gave this to me about 6 months ago. So this was a recent purchase. And here you're seeing the exact same thing. Again, we have one leather, we have the straps that add additional support, and then the front is reversed. Now, there is an exception to this. So remember, we talked about Louis Vuitton being a luggage maker. So a piece like this makeup bag is right up their alley. You may see on the bottom how this is actually a different piece of leather, but it's going to be seamed out by these straps. So if you do see something where they've pieced it out, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons why they started doing this was because when George took the company over, not only adding the LV to it, but he also made it waterproof, which was pretty amazing in the late 1800s. And then, fun fact, it is Marc Jacobs, who is a designer now, and he has his own fashion house, but he also has a lot of ties to Savannah, which is our sister city, because of the spirituality of the Pink House in Savannah. Marc stays there a lot and opened his first flagship store there on Broughton Street, if I remember correctly. So Marc took over the house in 1997, and that's when he decided to take Louis Vuitton out of the purse and luggage area and put it on shoes, clothes, accessories. So he's the one that truly made that house the fashion house that it is now. So super little fun fact. But anyhow, this strap right here is what you would see if you have that third piece of leather there. And that is to ensure not only the integrity of it, but also the waterproofing of it. And these stitchings right here, they're going to match up on every Louis Vuitton that you see. So if you've got 255 stitches on this bottom, you're going to have the exact same amounts here. And more simply, if you look at something like the luggage tag or the handle, again, your stitching is not only going to line up, but it is going to match up. I would say up until the 90s, this was all hand done. So you're looking at a true piece of art, okay? If you see anything off, if you see some of that stitching frayed, or if you see 6 stitches on one side, 10 on the other, it's a knockoff. And this is a knockoff, okay? So here we have the LV upright, we have the LV upright, and then we have this kind of wonky whatever going on with no signature at all in the wrap. You can see that the stitching is double stitched at times, and here the leather for the zipper, instead of being one solid piece, they've come around and glued it. So that would be, this is painted if you look really closely. So that coloring on a real Louis Vuitton is actually oils in your skin tanning the leather. So this bag, brand new, all of this leather looked this color. So they're actually painting it to look like it's worn and has the oils. And then of course you're going to see things like super quick cracking and tearing. Yeah, I always recommend go to the source, go to a Louis Vuitton store and just ask to hold something or look at it. And right away, just feeling the weight of it, you're going to see that they truly are works of art. They are works of art. So look for that. If you're going to pay $2,000 and $3,000 for something, you have to ask yourself, what will that quality be?